Number 10. Deadly underwater photo shoot. Adult film actress Molly Cavalli got into a bit of an underwater dilemma in 2017 during a photo shoot off the coast of Florida. It was honestly a pretty strange situation. Molly had just been lowered into the water inside of a protective shark cage, part of a stunt to take seductive pictures with lemon sharks swimming in the background. It should have been a fun time, but it wasn't. Moments after Molly was submerged in the cage, she was attacked. Before Molly even knew what was happening, a lemon shark had managed to chomp down on her ankle. She screamed, the water turned a terrible shade of crimson, and she was pulled out, gasping for air. If you're wondering how in the world she got bit by a shark while inside a protective cage, it was actually a bit of a screw-up on her end. Molly had unwittingly dangled her foot outside the cage's barrier, and this enticed the shark. It saw her foot as a delicious piece of bait and went in to take it. She was lucky the shark didn't bite her whole foot off. The shoot was immediately abandoned, and Molly was rushed to the hospital, where she had to get 20 stitches. Number 9. Shark in the belly. In 2017, snorkeler Irvin McCarty was diving with a group off the coast of Marathon City in the Florida Keys. During the trip, the captain of a local boat asked Irvin if he could help get a giant grouper out of a hole. A spear fisherman had managed to shoot the grouper, but then it wiggled into a hole and refused to come out. Irvin had a pretty good reputation for dragging groupers out of their hiding spots, so he agreed to give the captain a hand. But Irvin had a lot more to deal with than just a stubborn grouper. He found himself on the wrong side of a shark attack. According to Irvin, the second he got down and started fiddling with the dark underwater hole, a shark came out of a different hole and bit him on the stomach. Normally a shark would bite somebody and then swim away, giving them enough time to retreat. But this shark refused to let go. It sunk its shark teeth right into Irvin's stomach and stayed there. He had to grip the shark tightly with both hands so that it didn't thrash its head and rip his guts open, spilling Irvin's innards into the water. It was a truly horrific situation. Irvin had to get back to the boat while holding the shark snugly against his stomach. He had no hands to swim and could only kick himself back to the surface. Once back to the boat, someone had to kill the nurse shark with a knife and then pry it off of him like a leech or a parasite. Irvin walked away with a minor gash on his belly, but it could have been a lot worse. Number 8. One scared fisherman. Fisherman Joel Gray was standing on the shoreline of Matata Beach in New Zealand's Bay of Plenty when he thought he had caught a very large fish. He had something huge hooked on the end of his line and was eagerly reeling it in. But his excitement turned to terror when he realized the thing on the end of his line was actually a great white shark. This happened in early 2022, attracting a crowd of intrigued yet fearful beachgoers. They watched as Joel wrestled with the great white. It breached the water at least 6 times, getting closer and closer to the fisherman, before it finally snapped the line and broke loose. It was a scary yet exciting experience for everyone, especially the fisherman who was unsure if the shark would get close enough to bite. Joel held his ground, just kind of going with it until the monster broke loose. He was relatively safe on the shore, but still, if he had reeled the shark all the way onto the sand, it definitely could have lashed out and bit his leg. Number 7. The Italian swimming instructor. In March of 2022, an Italian tourist was killed off the coast of Colombia's San Andres Island after he got into a fight with a very big and very hungry shark. According to CBS News, the unusual attack took place in a popular snorkeling area on the southwest side of the island. The island, although part of Colombia, is in the Caribbean Sea, about 230 miles, 370 kilometers from Nicaragua. The victim, identified by Colombian presses as 56-year-old Antonio Rosetto degli Abruzzi, was swimming near a cliff with a group of other tourists when a tiger shark came out of nowhere. The shark was about 8 feet, 2.4 meters long, which isn't actually that big for this species. We don't actually know what happened between Antonio and the shark. Beachgoers and other swimmers were alerted to the attack only when they heard him screaming and crying near the cliff and saw the water turn a grisly shade of red. Luckily, there were good Samaritans who heard his cries and swam over to help, assisting Antonio onto dry land. But by that time, he had already gone into hypovolemic shock caused by abundant blood loss and was near delirious. Antonio was taken to the hospital, where he was declared dead. Number 6. Hero Priest. Surfer Mill Mummet was about 300 feet, 91 meters from shore in Bunker Bay, Western Australia, when he found himself the victim of a shark attack. It was July 31st, 2020, a beautiful and sunny day at the busy beach. While Phil was out catching some waves, Father Liam Ryan was hanging out in the shallow water with his friends. The priest then noticed an enormous dorsal fin sticking out of the water, creeping closer and closer to Phil. The priest knew something was about to happen and acted just in time to save the surfer's life. Phil didn't even realize he was being stalked by the shark and had no idea it was near him until it chomped into his surfboard and bit down on his lower leg. The surfer was tipped into the water, which immediately bubbled with blood. Phil panicked, but was able to jam his mangled surfboard into the shark's mouth as it continued to try and eat him. Since the priest had seen what was about to happen and was already acting, he managed to paddle out, grab the injured surfer, and help him back to shore before the shark could do any more damage. Luckily, the shark bite had just missed Phil's artery. It was sheer luck that he didn't bleed to death in the water, even with the priest's intervention. The surfer was taken to the hospital and made a full recovery, and the priest was given the Australian Bravery Award and hailed as a hero. Number 5. 2 sharks at once. The only thing worse than being attacked by a shark is being attacked by 2 sharks at the same time. That's exactly what happened in July of 2000 when a 15-year-old boy went surfing at Nahoon Reef in South Africa. He had just finished his first day back at school following the winter break and was eager to catch some waves. But after about 1.5 hours, a great white shark estimated to be 12 feet, 3.6 meters long, smashed into him so hard that the boy was thrown out of the water and into the air. Then the shark grabbed his hand, dragged him under the water, and another shark tried to bite off his head. The boy's name is Jack Dutton, and it was a miracle he survived, especially since all the other surfers left him in the water to die and frantically paddled to the beach. He was 300 feet, 91 meters out at sea by himself, totally on his own. It was by sheer luck that a huge wave rolled up and he was able to catch it, holding onto his surfboard and paddling furiously with one hand, barely hanging on by scraps of skin. According to Jack himself, he could literally feel the water rushing through his bones. Jack eventually made it to dry land and was rushed to the hospital and had to have his fingers sewn back together. The shark had chomped through his arm and his wrist bone, and he has scars to prove it. Amazingly, Jack has never stopped surfing. It's just that he's a bit more careful now when it comes to sharks. Number 4. Fatal attack in Morro Bay. On Christmas Eve of 2021, a man died in a tragic Morro Bay shark attack. According to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, Thomas Abraham Butterfield was bitten multiple times by a great white shark, resulting in massive blood loss and death. Thomas was only 42 years old when the incident occurred. He had been out bodyboarding in a popular area known locally as the Pit, near Morro Rock. The official cause of death given by the coroner was complications of multiple penetrating blunt force injuries. He had been bitten on his right shoulder, the right side of his chest, and his head. These are the last places you want to be bit by a shark. Judging by the teeth marks, the shark had actually readjusted its grip on the man, like a dog readjusting its toothy grip on a bone. As sad as all this is, we don't actually know what went on out there in the water. Thomas had gone swimming by himself, and his body wasn't discovered until around an hour after he was killed. Number 3. 2 attacks in one day. 2 shark attacks occurred just hours apart in Western Australia in 2018. The first attack happened at Cobblestone Beach near Gracetown when a 37-year-old surfer named Alejandro Travellini was knocked off his surfboard by a massive shark. It took a huge chunk out of his leg, nearly swimming away with the entire limb. He was rescued by some other surfers and airlifted to a hospital in Perth. You might think that after such an incident, people would stop surfing at the beach, at least for a couple of days. But within hours, surfers were back in the water as if nothing had happened. Then, 41-year-old Jason Longgrass was also bitten on the leg by a shark. This time, the shark took a bite out of his surfboard, and Jason narrowly escaped dismemberment. Witnesses say they saw a great white shark at least 13 feet, 4 meters long, swimming in the area, and it could have been the same one responsible for both attacks. In the aftermath, Jason healed up okay, and Alejandro had to have surgery on both his legs, just so he could walk again. Number 2. An underwater brawl. Heather West was out snorkeling with some friends near Loggerhead Key in January of 2022 when she had the experience of a lifetime. Heather lives in a van and travels around the United States. She was eager to explore the area with a couple of guys she'd met while traveling. When they got there, everything looked good and they decided to do some snorkeling. But the water became rough, so they decided to head back to shore. Just before she got out of the water, something tugged on her right foot. Heather's initial thought was that one of her friends was teasing her, but in fact, an enormous lemon shark had clamped its huge jaws around her foot and was trying to drag her under the water. What followed was a marine brawl with a deadly animal. Instinctively, Heather kicked the beast in the face with her free foot, but it kept tugging, and so she leaned forward in the water and started punching the shark right in its face. According to what she told news outlets, she punched it repeatedly for about 30 seconds before it finally had enough and gave up. Thankfully, her friends saw what was happening and quickly ran to her aid. They got her out of the water and took her to the hospital. But things weren't looking good. The shark had ripped her foot apart, and it was barely still attached to her leg. She had to be flown to a different hospital where a specialist stitched her foot up just in time to save it from being amputated. Number 1. The first attack of 2022. The unofficial shark bite capital of the world is Smyrna Beach in Florida. The very first shark attack here of 2022 saw a 21-year-old man from New Jersey get chomped on the knee. He was standing in water up to his waist fishing when the shark came up, tried to bite his leg in half, and then swam away. According to the ocean rescue captain, Tamara Maffers, the young man sustained injuries but was able to be driven to the hospital without paramedics. It was a close call, the first of what will undoubtedly be a dangerous shark season. But how deadly is anyone's guess? Anytime you wade into the water at a Florida beach, you have a pretty solid chance of winding up in the mouth of a shark. Would you rather be attacked by a shark or left alone at sea for 3 days? Let us know in the comments below, and thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time for another shocking video. Bye.